I don't know anyone who exists on this planet who doesn't have some sort of story of I'm not enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, whatever your story is, right? And so it really is a practice and it's an active choice that we get to make to really see our own value. One of the things that I love to teach and how to support my clients in seeing their value is starting to take every single day, taking inventory of something that you're proud of yourself for, something that you want to celebrate yourself for, because we're so often focused on what we're not or what we didn't do or that we didn't accomplish everything.
Hello there, queens. Welcome to another episode of The Brave Table. I'm your host, Dr. Neeta, and this is your destination, your oasis to be all things just a little bit more brave in your actions, in your relationships, and in your life. And today, I have a question for you. Are you curious about embracing more of that feminine energy where you are redefining success and fulfillment on your terms, especially in a masculine dominated world? Perhaps maybe you have been called because you have experienced burnout or mom burnout, or the fact that you are tired and maybe you are now waking up to savoring the slow. Well, today I have the perfect guest. Her name is Amy Natalie Pomensky, and she is a female women's empowerment coach and a feminine embodiment guide with over a decade of coaching experience. She specializes in helping women emerge as the most authentic, confident, and self-expressed versions of themselves. So, in this episode today, we are going to talk about what makes you come alive and the difference between masculine and feminine energy and how to begin leading a life fully from your feminine and how to heal the bonds that we may have had growing up with sisterhood wounds or feminine friendship betrayal, as well as why it's important to balance both the feminine and masculine, as well as if you are looking to redefine success on your terms, this is the episode for you. We get into all of this and more. So without further ado, let's welcome Amy Natalie on the Brave Table this week. Hello, love.
Hello. I'm so grateful to be here with you.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited. I feel like every time I'm in your energy, there's just this sense of calm and there is this sense of just like peace and inner peace. I don't know. Have you been told that?
I've been told that a lot, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate it because it's not something that used to come naturally to me. I spent a lot of time really navigating my inner landscape and really creating that sense of alignment within myself through meditation, through taking care of my body, through spending time in nature. Like it's something that I really had to cultivate. And I would say a big piece of it is like being in my body because I tend to be in my head a lot and it takes a lot of practice to like get out of those racing thoughts and constantly being in my mind. So thank you. Yeah, it's a daily practice for sure.
Well, and I was on your podcast, The Feminine Frequency, which I love. You've written a book called The Feminine Way. So tell us who Amy Natalie was before she found her softness, her feminine, because I think so often, in the chase for more, in the chase and the pursuit of this patriarchal idea of success and making it, we lose our way and we lose our core center. And I feel like you have done such a beautiful uh, job of reclaiming that and helping so many women reclaim that for themselves. So please, I guess let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah. So who I was before, I would describe myself as like the good girl archetype and living as, a people pleaser, really conforming to what my family wanted for me, what society wanted for me. I struggled with depression for most of my 20s, and I really feel like it was because I was living out of alignment with my true self, which I call my authentic self, my soul. So rewinding back to my mid-20s, I was married. I was in a nice relationship with a nice man.
I
I
love how
was
you say nice.
nice. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. It was sweet, like, and it it wasn't that like deep soul fulfilling life that I kind of had this feeling like there was more available. And for so long I made myself wrong for that. I feel like I was trying to fit myself into this, like I was like a round peg trying to fit into this square hole where it was like I was like, why am I not happy? What's wrong with me that I'm not happy? Like, why can't I just be grateful for what I have? And it was really this challenge, this internal battle that I had between wanting approval and acceptance from my family of origin and not wanting to disappoint people, right? Caring so much about what other people thought. And then the internal part of me was like, I feel so trapped. I feel so stuck. I don't feel like I'm being my full self. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I just knew I had like more potential. And I would look at other people who seemed happier than me. And I was like, why am I so unhappy? Like, I really want to feel more joy in my life, more connection in my life. So, I would say that's where I was. I was really stuck in my head. Like I shared before, I had a lot of negative self-talk, negative body image, a lot of overthinking. And yeah, I was struggling with anxiety and depression for a lot of my life.
Well, and as you share that, I'm thinking of so many of the young women that I come across, and even, just reflecting on how much resonance I have in your story as well. And I feel like we shared it on your podcast, which I'll link in the show notes. So it's very resonant. Do you think it's that, this kind of rite of passage that we have, like in our 20s, we're starting to individuate and we're trying to find ourselves. Some of us find spirituality, or then we hit this rock bottom. What was it for you? And because I see this pattern with other women who, they get into their 20s and they want the white picket fence and all of those things until something happens. Maybe it's a Saturn return at the end of their 20s, and then kind of things just blow up. And then they have this calling back to themselves, and then a reclamation back to themselves if they're open. If they're not, then they just keep going through the same patterns and patterns and patterns. And hopefully by the time, they're entering their 40s, uh, perhaps maybe they have found some solace. So, uh, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I definitely see that there is a collective shift happening. First, I mean, if you look at any spiritual journey, it's the journey of like coming into the world as your whole self and then losing yourself and then finding yourself, right? It's like this journey of constantly coming back home to self with the capital S, like your authentic self, your higher self, right? And then collectively, we are in this time of the age of Aquarius. We're in the time of the feminine rising. Astrologically, things have really shifted where we're moving out of, the patriarchal way of doing things. And there's a collective consciousness that's happening, that's shifting right now on a larger scale. We're realizing that the old way of doing things, masculine overdrive, performing, pretending to be someone that we're not, is not working for us. And we see this through, the rising rates of mental health issues, of infertility. We see this through rising rates of divorce. We see this through chronic health issues. The amount of women that have autoimmune diseases, it's not like by chance. There's these deeper underlying misalignments that are happening because we're not listening. And that's a deep part of honoring your feminine energy, is that deep listening to our body, listening to our intuition. So for me, my intuition was yelling at me. It was screaming at me. At first, it was a little whisper, and then it got really loud. And for me, it was speaking to me through my body. I had horrible digestive issues. I was gaining weight. I had eczema and skin issues. I was tired all the time. This is in my late 20s. My body was like, something's not right here. And then it
Mm.
was also screaming at me through my emotions, having panic attacks, waking up feeling like, what's the point? And that eventually led to this really low point where I remember sitting in the bath and I just like looked up and I was like, God, universe, whoever's out there, like, I
Mm.
need your help. Like, I've been trying everything. I've gone to therapy. I've done all of the things and nothing's working. And there has to be a reason for this. Like, there's something greater out there for me. And that was really the first time that I surrendered. That was the first time where I prayed. Like, I grew up in a more traditional Jewish home, but
Mhm.
prayer I didn't have a deep connection to it. And so this was the first time where I was like, God, show me the way, like show me a sign. I'm
Yeah.
ready to listen. And from that point forward, it was like I started to see a lot of signs and I started to listen. And to be honest, because I was waking up with panic attacks in the morning, my heart was racing. It's like 4 a.m. and I'm lying there next to, at the time, my ex-husband. And I would go and I would go meditate in the other room because that's all I could do. I was like, not just going to sit here and stay in this panic. I'm going to go do
Yeah.
something. So I sat and meditated. And as I did that, I started to hear my inner voice. And what my inner voice told me is, are you going to keep trying to make everyone else happy at the expense of your own happiness? Right. That was
Oof.
like the message that I got. And ultimately, like, it's not my job to make everyone else happy, and I can't make everyone else happy. So it's like a lose lose that's happening right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I started
Right.
listening to that and taking action in a different direction.
Well, and I feel like oftentimes, wouldn't you say that for anybody that's listening to this who has been kind of in this like stuck pattern of, the go, 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 the hustle, the chase, the I'm not going to be happy unless I get married. I'm not going to be happy unless I check all of these boxes. I fulfill the desires of, what I think I should be doing because I'm good at that. And, to the point of the whole good girl, the first daughter syndrome, martyr syndrome, that whole kind of archetype. When do you think that can be demolished or kind of looked into, or just if somebody is listening to this or watching this, what is that first step of, and if perhaps maybe they're not as connected to their intuition, what would be kind of that first check-in point?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the answer for me is creating space to go inwards. For me, it was meditation, and for other people, it might be journaling, it might be going for a walk in nature, but it's really taking that time and space to get out of the external noise of what
Mhm.
everyone else thinks you should do, whatever you think you should be. And that's even a practice that I would invite, is to take out a journal and write down, what are all the things I'm doing right now because I think I should do them, because
Yeah.
I have to do them? And instead of, what are the things that actually bring me joy, that light me up? And you could start with something just as simple as maybe watching the sunset, or going to a coffee shop and reading a book because you enjoy that, or going to a yoga class, and really creating that sacred time with yourself. And as you follow what lights you up, even in just these little ways, it brings you closer to understanding who you really are, right?
Yeah.
What are your values? What are your beliefs? What makes you happy? And we have a lot of shoulds, especially as women. We have a lot of these expectations and standards and ways that we try to conform so that other people approve of us, or so that we can prove our worth and value. So, really starting with even just a daily 5-minute check in with yourself would be a great place to start, especially if you're a busy mom or an executive. It's like, just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you'll start to notice, oh, I feel a shift and you'll want to do it more and more, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that you need to do like a 20-minute meditation twice a day in order to like do it right is just like not realistic for most people.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It brings me back the time where I had first kind of found my spiritual center, and I had this like 90-minute, morning routine. And I'm like, God forbid if I like, miss it. And now I'm like, how in the world did I even do that? Because in that act, there was still this sense of that masculine way of just being that had to be done, right? And I feel like now just even thinking whatever that sacred practice that we can have that lights us up, whether it's a 3-minute dance, one song, or for me, it's like making chai in the morning. And that has been like such a save, like a morning savior with my kids. And it is my morning meditation. And I think so often we have all of these like preconceived notions of what it should look like, and then we feel defeated because we couldn't do that thing. And and then it's not joyful anymore. It's not joyful because it's not a ritual, it's not intentional, it's not, the savoring. And so which leads me to this next question. What does it mean to be in the feminine way?
Yeah, so living in the feminine way to me is living from the heart and leading from the heart, right? It's leading from that place of what is it that brings me joy? What is it that lights me up? What is it that I'm passionate about? What is it that the impact that I want to make in the world? It really comes from like the heart and the body. And that doesn't mean that we ignore the masculine. We need that masculine structure in order to even bring our creations to life. We need that masculine structure so we don't feel like chaotic and all over the place, right? But being in the feminine way to me is coming home to your aliveness. Like, what is it that makes you feel alive? And when we look at the opposite, it's like when people are just working all day, they're not doing anything that they enjoy, they're not taking time to nourish their bodies, they're on that go, go, go. It's like that's like being a human doing, and it's like you're not actually living your life. So coming back to really the basics of like, we need nourishment, we need rest, we need to create space for things that fuel our souls, not just things that, check the boxes of societal success.
Yeah. And when was that tipping point for you? And did it all happen all at once? Was it like, okay, Amy's like, all right, checking out of the marriage, checking out of the career, F you to the parents, like what happened?
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen all at once. I would say that it was a few years of exploring my spiritual practice before I even, made some bigger changes. And I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with. They're like, I'm making these internal changes, but I still feel stuck. Like I haven't taken the action to make the change, whether that's leaving the job or leaving a relationship or moving to a new city or whatever it is. Like those are big things. So I would just say like it's a journey, it's a process. And eventually I did end up leaving my marriage, which was by far the hardest decision that I made. And I would say that that decision was not just leaving behind the marriage, but it was really leaving behind this old version of myself, right? And as I did that, I started to see what happened when I started living in alignment with myself. I started to attract new friendships. I started to attract opportunities in my business. There was more of this magnetism where I didn't have to try so hard. It was like when I wasn't pretending and when I was being more authentic and vulnerable and more expressive in who I am, I started to manifest and started to attract the right things into my life with more ease. So it definitely wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a process. And I would say that I still am in the practice, especially as a business owner. Like it's a constant dance. And that's how I like to describe it. It's a dance between the masculine and feminine. It's not just like, oh, I'm only going to live my life in the feminine and everything's going to be easy all the time and I'm just going to be slow. It's like, no, we've got to figure out what are those edges where, okay, I'm leaning too far into my feminine. I feel, unproductive and I'm not actually making progress towards my dreams and my goals. And then when we go too far to the other end where it's like I'm hyper focused on, I'm on my computer all the time or I'm always doing, we've got to find those edges where you're not feeling so stressed and where you're not being productive. So finding that dance between those two is an ongoing journey for sure.
Yeah, and I love that, even in what you were sharing about when you started to live in more in alignment with yourself and what has been alive for you. Because I love I love the term alive. And I do say that quite a bit as well. And I think it's so important for us as women, even as mothers, and our goal getting queens, that if we're not prioritizing what makes us come alive, then we're actually slowly killing off our creativity. And, even to just double click on what you shared about when that was so real for you, so many things started to just pop up and show up with ease and this magnetism because you're just in your flow. And it almost seems like there was nothing to prove, or you were just accepting you wholeheartedly. So can we just speak to when women own their truth, and how does self-worth come into play versus the ego when we're chasing after our careers and putting other people down just to get ahead, and the classic male ego that comes into play that we all kind of deem as success. And that's kind of what runs how we make decisions, how we meet people, that we have to keep pushing until we burn out, get sick, or you know numb ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the energy of, operating from that ego place to me feels like a forcing, a pushing, a chasing, right? Where like you've got to prove yourself, prove your worth. And what we do this in a lot of really subconscious ways. Like oftentimes women don't have this like checklist on their whiteboard, like get married, make this much amount of money. Like we have these goals, but a lot of times these are really sneaky, subconscious ways of doing things. And you turn around and look at your life, you're like, wait, how did I end up here? Like, this isn't really me. This isn't what I really want, right? Which we often call like the midlife or the quarter life crisis, right? But yeah, when we're in that space of pushing or proving, there's that energy that is like this forcing energy, right? But when we're embodied in our self-worth, meaning that we know the inherent value that we have to bring, that we know that we don't need to look a certain way or have a certain amount of money in order to be valued, in order to be liked, in order to be accepted, then we come from that place of grounded confidence. And that energy is so different. Like people can feel that from you when it's almost like if you're sitting in your chair, like you're sitting back a little bit. You're not in this like forward position, grasping, leaning in. Like there's a different energy in how you carry yourself. And so that deep sense of self-worth is a practice. I don't know anyone who exists on this planet who doesn't have some sort of story of I'm not enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, whatever your story is, right? And so it really is a practice and it's an active choice that we get to make to really see our own value. One of the things that I love to teach and how to support my clients in seeing their value is starting to take every single day, taking inventory of something that you're proud of yourself for, something that you want to celebrate yourself for, because we're so often focused on we're not, or what we didn't do, or that we didn't accomplish everything. And so if we can take that moment to really write down, these are the things that I'm proud of myself for, even the smallest things, that starts to build our confidence and our self-worth.
Good. Well, and that too for, any of our insecure girlies who perhaps may be ruminating and listening or watching this, and they might be ruminating in their thoughts. They might have a high level of self critique. They may have obviously these high levels of expectations that are either subconsciously put on themselves or perhaps from other ways. How, what do you tell them? Would it be something similar? Is that a similar exercise that they could start with?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that this comes down to how do we talk to ourselves.
Mm.
Our inner critic can be so loud, and I can relate to that so deeply of just focusing on our flaws and not feeling confident. I used to have this external confidence, but internally I was constantly second guessing myself, comparing myself. Like, I totally get it. So it really comes down to being intentional with your thoughts, noticing when are you saying things to yourself that are unkind. Like, even if you're not in a place where you fully love and accept all parts of yourself, it's like, am I being kind to myself? And starting to think of it as a relationship with yourself. Like, would you speak to someone else the way that you're speaking to yourself? So it takes that discipline of noticing when you're saying something to yourself, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, or when you're in a social situation and you're like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that stupid thing." Like, really noticing, pausing, and can you say something that's even like 5% nicer to yourself, right? Can you say something like you would say to someone that you respected? And it does take practice of being able to recognize when you're going down that shame spiral and that judgment spiral, and to really intentionally say, I'm not going down that today, and to choose a more loving and more compassionate thought that you would say
Mm.
to someone else that you really cared about.
Ooh, so good. So good. And, in your work and your book, The Feminine Way, what have you seen come out of, the women kind of going through your programs and even in the beautiful retreats? I know I just saw this on social media how you took so many women to Costa Rica, but having, this essence of really coming together, finding themselves, belonging, communing, and with like-minded, sisterhood. I Was that the mission of the book? And, take us through a little bit about what we can actually experience from the feminine way.
Yeah. So ultimately, I kind of see it as, your inner reality reflects in all different areas of your life. So as women come home to their feminine energy, as they come home to their body, as they come into alignment with their truth, then it changes how they show up in their relationships, changes how they show up in their friendships. It changes how they show up in their careers and or in their businesses and following their passion. So I always find it as this journey of first like coming home to their own alignment, and then everything in the external starts to change. And everything from women showing up in dating, and they're like, I'm no longer willing to settle for less in relationships, right? I know what my worth and value is. And other places that it shows up is women being more fully expressed, whether that's sharing their voices, whether that's putting themselves out there, whether it's on social media or speaking, or allowing themselves to be seen, right? Or creating new projects, like putting their art in the world, right? So it shows up in a lot of ways. And it looks different for every woman, and I really wanna emphasize that there can be this huge misconception that being connected to your feminine energy looks a certain way, which is more of like the performative feminine energy, where it's like you need to wear flowy dresses and you need to, be soft all of the time. And that might not be your authentic expression, right? So being in your feminine is what feels best for you. What feels most aligned for you? What feels most authentic to you? And then following that, because it will look different for different people. And I would say one of the greatest gifts that I've experienced from connecting to my feminine energy is being able to have deeper, more intimate connections, both romantically with my partner, but then also with other women.
Yeah.
When I was in my head all of the time and I was constantly comparing and insecure, it was really hard to connect with other women. And it also made me more judgmental. Like when I was judging myself, I was also judging other women.
Ooh,
And so,
let's talk about that even more
yeah.
because I feel like oftentimes, and I don't know, maybe we're just more intuitive, but I can tell if I'm at an event or if I'm at a new kind of, you know, dinner or someone's home. And just because we do these types of connection things for a living. And, you know, when you go to certain places and Brave Table Femme, you know what I'm talking about, where the energy is not matching and either you feel like a very different frequency or you're sensing that the other person isn't as open for whatever reason. Like it's a very closed off energy. You're trying to connect and you're really trying to be inclusive and open, but it is just not going anywhere. What do you say to that? Because I can now sense when there's like, "Oh, okay, that brings me back to my younger self, like back in my 20s when I too was, insecure or judging that everyone was judging myself or any of those kind of things." How can we support other women when we see that in the process? Because of course, it's nothing really, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So it's not like we can start coaching them right on the spot. Um, and and yeah, I really want to bring that up because I think that's a very it's a it's something that is common, especially if you're not um, just aligning with your besties in your sisterhood circle and you go off to other either conferences or networking events and you do see that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to this word embodiment is like being the example, right? Like that is the best way to inspire other people. They will feel connected to you, they'll feel more comfortable around you. And so if you're showing up and you're, being open and curious and you're noticing, even you're in the practice of, oh, there's a judgment that came up, but I'm actually going to choose to be compassionate, or I'm going to choose to be like, I don't really know this person's story, so I don't know where they come from, right? Like it is a practice, but people can feel that when you're being open and they feel drawn to that. And I really feel like if we want other women to change, like we have to be the permission for them. We have to show them what's possible. We have to create spaces where they feel welcomed and where, when they feel ready, that they know that they can come to you, that they can be included in your community. So I really feel like it's first starting with our own authentic expression and us showing up openly and with kindness towards other women. And when other women feel that, it really gives them permission to be like, oh, something felt different about that person. And like, I felt drawn to that. I'm interested in making those changes myself.
And I love that. I think that's so beautiful because oftentimes, then it's like this whole idea of, okay, hurt people hurt people. So if you feel rejected, then maybe you'll also feel closed off. So I really love that. But the other thing that I wanted to even bring up is, this idea of the this if women have had a wound in their sisterhood, how can they rise through, and perhaps maybe they only found connection with men, or uh, you know, they may have this idea that that isn't for them, or they want to really cultivate their this feminine essence to them because they're done with the hustle and grind and they want to have more flow and fun in their life. What is some of the ways, or what are some of the ways that they can begin that journey of healing those feminine parts of ourselves?
Yeah, well, first I can say I can totally relate to that. That also brings me back to like my high school and college years where there were a lot of experiences where I felt left out, where I felt judged, where I felt misunderstood by other women, like super deep sisterhood wounds. And I think really the journey starts with coming to a place of self-love and self-acceptance where it's like we're really only engaging in relationships that feel mutual and supportive. So if you notice that you're surrounding yourself with people who are gossiping or who are not being very kind to other people, then you get to decide like, are those the types of relationships that I want to invest in? A lot of my clients explain like their journey, especially, women who are used to like partying a lot or they have this old persona where they do hang out in these environments that aren't super nourishing for them as they go through this evolution of coming home to their authentic self and really developing this self-worth and self-love. It is a shedding and a letting go of these old friendships and these old relationships. And there often is this time, we can call it the void, we can call it a cocoon, where you kind of go inwards for a bit. And you really focus on creating an environment for yourself that's nourishing and supportive. And sometimes that means spending more time with yourself and then starting to get curious. Okay, what are some spaces that I want to explore? And it does take a lot of courage to show up to a women's circle, to go try a new activity, to do something different, right, than what you've normally done for connection. And it will feel uncomfortable at first. That's really where the growth happens. It's like when we feel that fear or that old rejection voice coming up, and we're like, oh, maybe I won't go to that event tonight because like I'm afraid or like I'm scared. And then you choose to do it anyways. And then you go and maybe you meet one person that you connected with, one person that you felt safe with. And that's all you really need, right? Is to have these moments, these healing moments where we feel seen by someone else. Uh, And this is the space that I create for women. I know that you create these spaces for community and connection where everyone's intention being there is to connect, is to support each other, is to feel seen and heard. And when you start to put yourself in those spaces, you start to heal those old wounds and realize, oh, it is safe to be myself.
Mm.
And when I am myself, people really feel more connected with me and like I actually feel happier and have more fun when I'm being myself instead of pretending to be someone who I'm not. So I would say that feels like the progression is that shedding and letting go, that going deep within, and then starting to explore what are some spaces that do feel more aligned for me to invest my energy in.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It's finding your safe person, especially when you are navigating new circles. And it just brought me to a reflection point of when I had left my marriage and kind of all my first marriage, and all of the communities that came around with it. And this was kind of at the tail end of it was my Saturn return at the end of my 20s and beginning of my 30s. And, it was very much that sort of like partying scene. And, it was a couple years out of dental school, owning my practice, all of that. And so there was a lot of this ego tied to my worth and, what I built. And, there was a lot of rediscovering who I was in that. And, a lot of the insecurities would also lead to meeting insecure humans in my life, right? Because that was the energy that was emanating at the time. And I felt this huge shift when I started to obviously do that inner work and then, hire coaches and work with spiritual teachers and work with somatic coaches and go to my first retreat and my second retreat and another retreat and just all of these different ways of healing that then my my circle completely changed fully. Um fully, and it wasn't necessarily overnight. It was finding those one or two humans that were safe spaces, and from there then there's a couple more that trickle in, and so this kind of leads me. There was this meme that I saw recently, and it said that, is it hard to make friends later on in life? I don't know if you saw this, but it was like trending that people are, they think that friendships should be easy, and that after college or what adult friendships and perhaps girlfriends, and it even gets harder, supposedly, when you reach motherhood because there's just no time. What do you say to that as somebody who teaches women how to build community and finds deep sisterhood friendships?
Mhm. I think it really comes down to your deeper beliefs, and if you're buying into the narrative that like no one understands me, or there's, it's really hard to make friends, well, that's going to be your reality. And I remember I used to have all of these affirmations that I would say to myself. It's like I surround myself with really supportive and inspiring women. I am a match to call in, align friendships and relationships into my life. And as you start to repeat that, you start to look for opportunities of where are there people that I do relate to? Where are there people that I connect with? And sure, it is easier when you're younger. You make friends through school, you make friends through dance, you make friends through extracurricular activities. Like, yes, there is a built in piece, and you're not as busy adulting, right? And if making connections with other women or just having deeper friendships is important to you, then that gets to be a priority. And if it's a priority, it will happen. And you don't need to have a million different friends. Like for me, having one or two women that I know that I can really lean into and that they are going to be there to support me and vice versa. And then there's other friends who I might see once a month or once every few months, and I still care about them, but I don't have as much energy to see everyone all the time. So I think, depending on your capacity and your bandwidth, there are going to be different layers of friendships, and, in different seasons of your life, there's going to be different layers of friendships. But if it's something that you really crave and you desire, I truly believe that it's available for you.
Totally. Totally. And so, what feminine practices do you really love for anyone that's like, all right, I'm tapping in, I'm calling in my feminine frequency. This is that season, this is my era. What would you suggest?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me is dancing. I know you mentioned earlier, like having your own dance party, putting on, a song or two to dance to, and it changes our frequency. Like even in just a few minutes of moving our body, and it's not just like a fun idea. It actually somatically is moving energy in our body. When we are sitting down all day and our shoulders are rigid because we're on our computer or on our phone, and our hips are locked in tight because we're sitting, crossing our legs the whole time, and our bodies just feel tense, like that affects how we feel internally. But when we're like moving our bodies and shaking our booty and like shake, even if and it's not about how it looks, I really want to emphasize that. It's like, it doesn't have to look super sexy. It's like put on music and move your body in a way that feels good. And the other thing that I'll offer is like make sound. That is something that so many women are afraid to do. And it's something that on my retreats we really explore because we're in this like, jungle, and we're in this place where no one can hear you. But it's like expression, using your voice is so huge for women. And when we're afraid to make sound or afraid to express ourselves, we really are doing ourselves a disservice. There's like a lot of throat chakra blockage that I see for women. So when you're moving around, maybe it's even just like a deep sigh, or like if you are feeling frustrated, yelling into a pillow, like moving energy is something that I would invite women to do. And it changes your state so quickly, and it's really easy to do. So I would start there. I feel like that's like the most fun tool.
Oh,
And
yes.
then I feel like a lot of women are really feeling called to connect with nature more. It's something that I never used to really think of or never used to prioritize. But I noticed such a difference in my nervous system when I spend time outside, when I go for a walk, when I am surrounded by trees or, by the ocean. And I think it's something that is so primal and so natural for
Mhm.
us to be connected to the earth and connected to nature. And we've lost a lot of that because of our modern technology. So, like putting down your phone, going outside, putting your feet in the ground, sitting outside, going for a walk, whatever it is, I think that can be a really powerful, easy step that you can take to start to connect more with nature. And I always say, like, the more that you connect with nature, the more you connect with your own true nature. Like there's just this reflection that happens when we connection with nature that invites us into a little bit more slowness and into a little bit more inner peace that's available for us.
Oh, so true. So true. Amy, oh my gosh. So I feel like we can keep talking and keep going. Where can we get a hold of more of you and tell us when the next retreat is happening?
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend to come on over and listen to the feminine frequency. Neeta was on recently, so you can definitely find her episode on there. But we have so many incredible episodes and, so much feminine wisdom on the podcast. So you can find the feminine frequency wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can find my book, The Feminine Way, on Amazon. There's the audio version that I read, and then also there's paperback option or digital. And then you can find me on Instagram at Amy Natalie Co. I'm always sharing new insights and wisdom on there. And my retreat is called the Radiance Retreat. I host it once a year in Costa Rica and it sells out. It's probably the most magical sisterhood healing adventure that I could ever imagine. And yeah, it's something so special that we get to experience, taking that extended amount of time for nourishment and self-care and connection and time in nature. It's really special. So the next one will be in February of 2026.
Ooh, all right, mark your calendars. So, as we get into our final chai round before we let you go, so it's our spill the chai section. So, you can answer these questions as long as you want, as short as you want. Um, so, one word to describe your energy right now.
I feel expanded, like when I have these deep conversations on where I get to share what I'm passionate about and get to connect with other inspiring women. I just get this like joy and expansion within
Mhm.
myself. So that's how I feel right now. Yeah.
What are you braving right now?
Ooh, I am braving this next expansion in my business where it's like there's so many big things that I want to do, and it's a lot to hold. It's like, really stepping into that next level of visibility and also of creating really cool experiences for women to get to step into their own feminine frequency. So yeah, leaning into that edge of expanding my capacity to hold that right now.
Oof. What's one belief that you had 5 years ago that you've completely shifted?
One belief that I had 5 years ago, that I need to be different in order to be loved. Right.
Mm.
And
Ooh.
Thankfully, I've overcome that and I'm in a really beautiful, secure, healthy, passionate relationship. And I needed to really work through that, piece of not feeling lovable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's one thing every woman should know about her feminine power?
That you are already worthy exactly as you are.
Mm.
And that when you acknowledge that, when you embody that, everything shifts, everything changes. Your standards for your life elevate, and you will start to attract the most extraordinary people and opportunities into your life.
What's one non-negotiable daily habit?
Non-negotiable daily habit for me is meditation. It
Mm.
is my daily dose of, you know, connecting with myself and creating that inner peace.
Amy Natalie, you are fire. I love your wisdom. I love your energy. I love your essence. And the way that you hold space for people, this conversation, this container, it exudes. I feel like it exudes out of the mic, it exudes out of your voice. And I can't wait to bring you back. So thank you for pouring your love into our community this week.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Okay. Welcome back to the other side. If you just loved our episode with Amy Natalie, go ahead and follow her at Amy Natalie Co. on Instagram. You can grab her book, The Feminine Way, on Amazon right now. It will change your life for any of your girlfriends that are looking to tap more in the feminine. If you're watching this on YouTube, if somebody sent this to you and you are not subscribed, we are trying to grow our YouTube this year, and it would mean the world to me if you can hit the subscribe button, if you like in this video, and you can also leave a comment on what was the most perspective changing for you. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to be just a little bit more brave. You know I've got so much more in store for you. So if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.